Hello everyone, my name is Payal Tantan and I will be your host today. I welcome everybody to Number Properties 2 webinar, in which we are going to be talking about various strategies that you can utilize in order to ace number properties, and these strategies can then be extended across all of Quant. As I said, my name is Payal Tandan. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT. With me I have Ashutosh Mishra, one of the subject matter experts in Quant, and Komal, one of the GMAT strategy experts, and they will be supporting all of you through the Q&A pod, which I will share with you once we move into the presenters pod. So once again, welcome everybody. So in order to make sure that all of you are well prepared for the session, we share these video lessons with you, just so you get the apart from just being well prepared for the session, we want you guys to get a flavor of how is it that we teach concepts, how is it that we teach various aspects in the e-GMAT course. So I hope that all of you got a chance to go through these video lessons. If not, these video lessons are part of your free trial as well for those of you who are not e-GMAT students. So definitely go through them. Every weekend we conduct these webinars to make sure that all of you have the right strategies to prepare for GMAT. So next weekend on Saturday, I will be conducting reading comprehensions webinar. I welcome all of you to register for that, and I look forward to seeing each one of you in that webinar as well. Now, in order to understand the makeup of the class, we ask you this question: when do you plan to take the test? So for those of you who haven't as yet put in their responses, please do so at this time. So looking at the responses till now, it appears that the largest segment is about 50% of the class is planning to take the test anywhere from 30 days to 75 days. There are few who are taking the test within the next 15 days, and don't worry, you will have a number of learnings from this session that you can implement directly as you prepare for in these last stages of your prep. So we have everything for everybody. So once again, I welcome all of you. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the next layout here, and it's going to take a couple of seconds for the screen to stabilize at your end. Now once you start seeing Number Properties 2 Quant Live session, please click yes, because that's an indication that the screen has stabilized at your end. So I'll wait for a couple of more seconds before I jump into it. All right, so let's get right into it now. So there are three parts to this webinar. In the first part, I'll give you a brief introduction about e-GMAT as a company and how is it that we have structured our courses to make them the most effective courses out there. So we'll spend a bit of time on that. Then we'll go into the subject matter part of this webinar, and then towards the end, we're going to take an open-ended Q&A session in which you will ask me questions with regards to quant, verbal, or just in general your MBA journey. Okay, your MBA prep journey is what I would say. All right, so let's get into the first part over here. Let me ask you one question. How many of you are planning to score a score of 720 or higher? Press yes. Almost everybody. Okay. And that is a number of people. Almost everybody over here is planning to score a 720. But if you go to mba.com and if you look at the stats, you will realize that only 6% of all the GMAT test takers score 720 or higher. Okay. Another thing that you will realize is that the median GMAT score at top B schools has been going up for the last few years. Just this year, this median scores at all of these top schools have increased if you look at, so if you compare the data. Now, what about these people who score 720 or higher? A good percentage of these students actually study with e-GMAT. And why do I say that? If you look at some of the stats, you will yourself come to the same conclusion. Let's take a look at the number of verified reviews on GMAT Club. e-GMAT, Magoosh, Veritas Prep and Manhattan Prep are 4 of the top test prep companies in the GMAT prep space. When you look at the number of verified reviews, you will find that e-GMAT has more verified reviews than all of these companies combined. And what are these verified reviews? These are reviews posted after October of 2015 or about 3 years ago and have been verified using an enhanced score report or a verified GC membership, that is GMAT Club membership. Similarly, if you take a look at the number of success stories written on GMAT Club's Share GMAT Experience, you will find a very similar story. e-GMAT has been mentioned more frequently in those success stories than the next 3 most popular test prep companies. And again, the links to both of these stats are on the slide. I definitely welcome all of you to verify the same. So that being said, what makes our students more successful? It's really the architecture of our courses or our unique approach to GMAT prep. Now, to understand that a little bit better, it's important to understand what are the various learning architectures that are prevalent in the literature today. There are really 2 such architectures. The first one, which is the most common architecture, is the book-based architecture. The second one is the private tutoring-based architecture. Now, if you compare the online prep companies today, most of them are centered around the book-based architecture. Yes, you may argue that they do have audiovisual content in their offerings, but really their core architecture is still the same as that of a book-based approach. And I'm going to prove that to you. e-GMAT, on the other hand, is built around a private tutoring-based architecture. So let's see what the difference between these 2 architectures is and why one architecture has a higher success rate than the other. To compare these 2 methodologies, it's important that we set a baseline on how is it that you ace the GMAT. To score a 720 or higher, the first thing that you need to do is create a personalized path towards your goal. Then you need to make sure that you learn the concepts that you do not know. Then you learn how to apply those concepts. And finally, you need to confirm that you have indeed attained a level of mastery that you actually do end up scoring a 720 or that 94 percentile. Or in other words, you perform better than 94% of the test takers. Now, a book-based approach is all about autonomy. In the book-based architecture, you get a lot of learning material and possibly some marks, but the key decisions on how to go about doing your preparation are completely on you. For example, in a book-based approach, you create your own study plan. You create a schedule and you study the concepts, and while studying the concepts, you make a decision as to whether you have attained the level of mastery enough to move forward to the next set of concepts. Now, once you've learned the concepts, you practice questions. Why? Because books don't focus as much on teaching you how to apply the concepts. You typically learn application by practicing questions, which is why people who prepare using books believe in practicing and tend to solve thousands of questions. Now, once you've solved some questions, you then take mocks to evaluate where you need to focus. Again, the onus of analysis and decision making is completely on you, and it can get quite subjective. On the other hand, a private tutoring approach works a lot differently. A good private tutor also starts with a study plan, but to create a study plan, he first evaluates your strengths and weaknesses to create the fastest path to your goal. Once you have this truly personalized study plan, your tutor then teaches you concepts, evaluating you constantly in the process. Once you've learned a few concepts, not all the concepts, just a set of concepts, the tutor then teaches you how to apply these concepts in a methodical manner. And this cycle of learning concepts and enforcing application goes on for some time. After that, the tutor typically carries out a focused evaluation of your mastery of concepts. In the event that you reach a level of mastery, you move on. Otherwise, the tutor creates a mini revision plan for you. So how do these approaches compare? If you think about it, you learn the same concepts in both these approaches. After all, concepts remain the same. There are 2 key differences beyond just the concepts. One, the private tutoring-based approach is a lot more personalized, starting with the study plans and the constant evaluation at each of the 4 stages. Second, the extent of application that you learn in a private tutoring based approach is a lot higher. So now let's see, why do I say that e-GMAT is designed to behave a lot more like a private tutor? We'll start with step 1, which is personalized study plan. Let's say that you're someone who's starting at a score of 600. Your goal is to reach a score of 720. Now these are the 3 steps. I apologize for the slide here. The first step that you're going to do is you're going to quantify your starting abilities, and you do that using the sigma X mock. Okay. The second step that you do is you basically set your milestones. Okay, and we'll talk more about these milestones. These milestones are created utilizing the GMATplanner.com. That's the AI utility that we have built so that each one of you is equipped to build his or her own personalized study plan in fewer than 7 minutes, and I'll walk you through that next. So what you do over here is you basically enter your current quant and verb. You enter your current GMAT score. In this case, 600 is the assumed GMAT score. Then you enter your current quant and verbal scores. Here we have selected Q44 and V28 combination. Then in order to get to your target score of 720, the system gives you recommendation. Okay, let's take up Q50 and V38 as a possible combination. Now beyond that, you have to figure out what your intermediate trackable targets are. What do I mean by that? In order to get to Q50, you can select one of 3 ways. And the AI utility tool, the GMATplanner.com that we have built, enables you to discover these 3 ways. Okay? Using this tool, you decide that you're going to ace arithmetic and aim, and you're going to ace algebra geometry as well. Okay, so you have decided to go to a balanced approach between arithmetic and algebra geometry. If let's say you feel that you're a lot more comfortable with arithmetic and you can push yourself to go to excellency in arithmetic, you could decide to do that. In that case, in order to get to a Q50, you would not really need to push yourself as much in algebra geometry. So again, you choose which one of those 3 ways you want to utilize in order to get to that Q50. Similarly, on the verbal side, you decide to ace sentence correction, do decently well in CR. In RC, you decided not to push yourself and you wanted to stick to a 68 percentile there. Right? But here, what I want you to notice is that when you're making these decisions utilizing GMATplanner.com, what you're doing is your journey to 720 is no longer a black box in which you study, and then at the end of it, you take the mocks with the hope to get to that 720 score. Whereas your journey now is a very well defined set of 5 milestones that if you hit those milestones, you get the confidence that yes, you're going to get to your target score. Once again, take a look at these screenshots. That's what the system tells you, that you are currently at a Q44 with 59 in arithmetic and in algebra you are at 39 percentile. You plan to go to a Q50 with a balanced score in arithmetic and algebra, and likewise for verbal, your starting points and then your ending points. And remember, in order to get to these starting points, you have to take either the sigma X mocks, which give you these precise starting points, or you actually have to utilize the ESR that you would have gotten from your prior GMAT test attempt. Okay, how many of you over here are first-time test takers? Okay, so about 70% of the class is, well, people are still putting in the responses, about 70% of the class is first-time test taker. Well, I urge all of you to take Sigma X mock test to figure out what your starting abilities are, so that you can put in these abilities over here, and then you basically have a very, very clear personalized study plan created for you utilizing this tool. All right. Now, one of the very interesting screens in personalized study plan tool that we have is that it gives you a very time-wise split of how is it that you can go from one milestone to another. So it basically charts out your entire journey, entire GMAT prep journey. And here you see, you start at 600, you end at 720, and these are the clearly well-defined milestones for you that get you. And as you get closer to, and as you accomplish each of these milestones, you get closer to your 720 GMAT score. Let me ask you, how many of you have this level of clarity with your personalized study plan today? Less than half of the class, okay. I want all of you to take this opportunity to take a Sigma X mock. It's included in your free trial at e-GMAT, and create this personalized study plan. Again, both these tools are available absolutely free of charge. Okay, I see a lot of people coming up to me asking me, how much do you charge for this GMATplanner.com? We're like, no, we don't charge this. We don't charge for this. We want everyone to be able to create their own plan. All right, now in addition to that, you also are able to punch in the hours that you want to spend on a day-to-day basis. So in this case, the student decided to spend 2 hours on weekdays and 5 hours on weekends, and then he or she can come and adjust any of these hours. For example, over here, the student decided to adjust these 5 hours to 3 hours because maybe he or she had certain other engagement to be taken care of on that day. So again, you can punch in the hours over here, either on a global basis or on a per day basis, and track your study plan accordingly. All right. So let's come back to the next part over here. Now that we have these milestones, let's see how you can personalize your learning towards these milestones. Now, if you remember, a private tutor frequently evaluates whether you've learned or not, and our technology platform is engineered to do the exact same thing. How do we do that? This is the screenshot of the course in Number Properties, and we have taken the example of divisibility and remainders module. So if you notice, you have divisibility concept, you have remainders concept, but after going through divisibility concept, the student goes through the application and practice. Okay. This timer over here shows the amount of time that you've spent in studying this concept. Likewise, this timer over here shows the amount of time that the student has spent in studying this concept. Okay. Now, by contrast, if you take a look at an offering in Magoosh, there is no application file. There is only one practice file, which basically with 5 questions over here. And this practice file is common not only to divisibility, but also to all of number properties over here. So what I want you to compare is that in the e-GMAT platform, you had a concept, then an application file, then a practice file, then the next concept, then the application file which covers the application of this concept, then a practice file. So you can compare the amount of practice that is given at the right time in the e-GMAT course. Okay. This is how you would find a typical concept file, detailed video solution of each and every concept. Okay, video solutions that make sure that has the right kind of audio-visual content so that the concepts are absolutely embedded in your mind. Okay, detailed solution of each and every practice question within that particular concept file. By contrast, if you look at the how does a video solution look like in let's say a Magoosh course, let's look at this slide. This is a screenshot from Magoosh's interface. What you'll observe is these are just lessons, not evaluation, and also look at the kind of learning that you have over here. It's very verbose, and there is not much of an interaction. And again, this looks a lot more like a book than a private tutor. Now, after making sure that you've learned concepts, you have to learn how to apply the concepts, and that's what we talked about in the previous slide over here. But let's take a look at this again, the application quiz and then the practice quiz, and again, making sure that you are learning concepts and then applying those concepts at the right time. Okay. Now this is how every module, whether it's in quant or verbal, is architected. Okay, we have more than 8 application files just in the number properties module, and you have total of 5 modules in quant. So you get ample number of questions to apply the concepts on. Alright, so now let's talk about the next thing here. Your goal was to go from 40 percentile to 79 percentile, right? Now in the e-GMAT portal, we have built a specific tool called Scholaranium that has ability quizzes that allow you to measure your algebra ability. Not only that, it empowers you to create a path to reaching your target ability scores, and that's what we are talking about next. So let's say the student went through the entire algebra, the algebra module, and he then came to Scholaranium, he took the ability quiz, and he got a 64 percentile in this ability quiz. Now, how does he get from 64 percentile to 83 percentile? He goes into skill data and he evaluates, okay, what kind of questions is he not able to answer? And here the answer is relatively straightforward. He's not able to answer inequality questions and functions questions. So now this student has a clear path from a 64 percentile to an 83 percentile. So now that you understand the key differences between the two approaches, you can understand why e-GMAT is a lot more like a private tutor instead of a book. Now, you can create an amazing architecture, but to make it truly impactful, you also need to have good instructors. And at e-GMAT, we have some of the best instructors you're going to find in the business. In fact, 4 out of GMAT Club's top 5 instructors work for e-GMAT. Instructors who not only work full-time in helping you ace the test, but also have been reviewed a lot more frequently on GMAT Club. So, you can tell that it's not a surprise that while only 6% of individuals score 720 or higher, a good number of them study with us. And you can definitely connect with Rajat on LinkedIn to connect with thousands of these students. Alright, so with this, let's now get into the subject matter portion of this session. I hope all of you got a very good idea about how is it that you can create your own personalized study plan, and how is it that you can move from your study plan accomplish all those 5 neatly laid out milestones to get to your target score. Now we're going to talk about number properties, and we're going to solve number properties questions using a unified approach. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to first tell you the progression of this session. What we're going to do is, my goal is to make sure that you understand what are the 2 most important things to master GMAT Quant. The first one is you need to have a sound understanding of basics. You need to have that solid conceptual knowledge. The second is you need to know how to apply those concepts in order to solve questions. So again, your concepts and your application. And through this, through the topic of divisibility and remainders, I'm going to walk you through how is it that by progressively learning the concepts, you are able, and focusing on the right aspects, you are able to solve even the most difficult of questions. So for that, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to give you these 3 DS questions to solve one after another. I'm not going to time you. I'm going to see when about 50% of the students have answered the question. I'm going to give you a 30 to 40 second warning. And I'm not going to solve these questions with you. You will solve these questions, and then we are going to keep those, keep your attempts aside, and then we're going to start from the very basics. We're going to do some warm-up exercise, and then we'll move on to solving some problem-solving easy questions. Then we'll solve some difficult problem-solving questions, and then we'll come back to the questions that you solved up front, and I'll give you another chance to solve these questions. My hope is that at least some of you would be able to mark the correct answer now. Even if that's not the case, I'm very, very confident that you will be more confident of your approach by the time you solve these questions towards the end, when you get to solving these questions the second time. Okay, so let's get going. The first three questions you are solving back to back, and I will be muted most of the time so that I don't bother you while you're solving the questions. So do you all have your pen and paper handy with you? Good. Let me ask you one question. How many of you feel confident about the topic of divisibility and remainders? Maybe I should give you a quantified, let me just create a poll here. Maybe it's not a yes/no question. Level of confidence in, give me 1 second. Okay, here you go. Okay, so either you, okay, so about almost equal split between people who are 80% confident and people who are 50% confident. Okay, sounds good. That's thank you very much for participating here. Tell me here, what are the problems that you face with quant? I am going to give you these questions, but let me just first get the pulse of the class. I've been talking since the last almost half hour, so a little bit of chance for you guys to talk before I throw these three questions at you. So what is the problem that you face in quant today? And it can be specific to number properties or just general quant in as a whole. Mixtures, application of concepts, frequent silly mistakes, okay. Miss the traps, permutation and combination, thinking of all possibilities, okay. Taking too long to solve, all right, good. Thank you. All right, so let's see. By the end of the so towards the end of the session, I will ask you this question again, and I'll see. And my question will be, what kind of issues do you have confidence of solving now after the session? Okay, so good. All right, now let's get going with these questions here, and let me get the poll for the first question. All right, can you all click on still solving? All right, let's get a few more responses here. Okay, here you go. Last 15 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. All right, can you please click on still solving? All right, here is question number 9. Go ahead. Last 15 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. And here comes question 10, the last question in this series. Okay, can you please click on still solving? All right, here you go. Last 15 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay. Okay. So we are done with this. How was the experience? Solving 3 most difficult questions in the session. How was the experience here? All right, it was tough. I guess 2 last questions, mixed feelings, half correct, half not understood seemed easy. Okay. All right, sounds, again, I don't want this to be demotivating thing. It's absolutely fine even if you got the questions wrong. The goal here is to understand how is it that we can improve. Okay, so please don't take it any other way. Okay, so I'm not going to share the results right now because I do want to give you another chance to go through to solve these questions after we actually build up on our conceptual and application knowledge. Okay, so let's get going here. So in this section, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you some basic questions on divisibility and remainders, and I'll be able to give you some feedback with regards to your current conceptual knowledge. Again, I'm not going to be explaining the concepts to you. The manner in which you learn concepts is through the concept. You learn the concept through the concept files. Okay. So let's get the polls here. Here is, and again, these would go a lot quicker because again, these are all very easy questions. So can you please click on still solving? Okay. Here you go. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So what this question is telling you is that Z is a 3-digit number, okay, whose digits are consecutive numbers, and we need to figure out divisibility by 3. Now, what is the divisibility rule by 3? That sum of digits should be divisible by 3, right? Now, here you have a 3-digit number whose digits are consecutive numbers. So what do? You need to get the sum of digits, right? So let's assume that that the first digit is x, then the next digit is x plus 1, then the next digit is x plus 2, and you add these numbers, what you get is 3x plus 3. So no matter what the value of x, this number would always be divisible by 3. That's why the correct choice over here is choice B, which about 70% of the class selected. Okay, so those of you who selected choices A and C, I believe that you know the divisibility rule of 3, but you probably missed out on how is it that you combine the information that's provided in the question statement and link it to get to the sum of digits, to get to the divisibility check. Okay, so again, this is a very straightforward question, so definitely chart out a path to your solution when you get started with solving questions. Okay, so let's look at question number 2 now, and I'm going to remove this, reopen. Please click on still solving, and then I'll show you question number 2. Here's question 2. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Here are the results. Let's look at the solution here. The correct answer here is choice A. So quite a few of you were not able to answer this question correctly. So let's take a look at what is the divisibility rule for the number 4. So type in over here, what's the divisibility rule? Tell me, what's the divisibility rule with number 4? Last two digits should be divisible by 4. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now in this case, what are we given? We're given that the digits are consecutive numbers. Now tell me, the way we solved the question, the manner in which we solved the previous question, that we took x plus 1, x plus 2, will that same approach apply here? No, it will not. Why not? Because here we are not really concerned about the sum of digits, right? What we are concerned about is the last two digits. So here what we're going to do is we're going to take up some cases. At a very broad level, the two possible cases for any number are that either the number is odd or the number is even, right? Now when it's odd, z is not divisible by 4, right? If z is odd, then no matter what the number is, z will not be divisible by 4. Okay, so we know that z is not divisible by 4, which if it is odd. Now let's take a look at when it's even. When it's even, there could be two cases such that the last two digits are consecutive numbers. The first case would be, let's say 3, 4, 5, 6. In which 56, the last two digits are indeed divisible by 4, or let's say the last two digits could be 3, 4. Now in that case, the last two digits are not divisible by 4. So really, you have cases in which the number is divisible by 4, and you have cases in which the number is not divisible by 4. Thus, the correct answer is that the z may be divisible by 4. So because quite a few of you, the accuracy for this question is less than 50%, only about 44% of the class could get the question correct. My first question to all of you who selected choice A is that, did you consider all these cases? My question is, were you able to get to the right answer utilizing the right approach? Okay, good. Now tell me, for those of you who were not able to select choice A as the correct answer, where did you falter? Again, very, very important. Why is it that you faltered? did the same approach. I used the same method as the previous one, didn't know how to approach it. Okay. Use the method for 3. Okay. So Again, the thing to understand is, and this is the thing for all questions, whether it's easy question, whether it's difficult question, and this is one of the easiest questions here, right? The thing over here is that you have to first chart out the path to solution, okay, and then start to solve it. Okay, it's very important to have that step-by-step process in your mind, that what is being asked, what do you know, how are you going to get from what you know to what you're being asked. Okay, that's the application. All of you know the concept of last two digits should be divisible by 4 if the number is to be divisible by 4. All of you know the concept, so it's not that you don't know the concept. What you are not able to do is you're not able to take the information that's present in the question, and you're not able to chart out your path to the solution. That is where the problem is. Okay, so the application is an issue. Okay, so my feedback to all of you is who are not able to solve the question correctly is focus on application. Okay, all right, so now let's move on to our third warm-up question. All right, go ahead, please click on still solving. All right, last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Good. So most of you got this question correct. Choice C is indeed the correct answer. The divisibility rule of 8 is that last three digits should be divisible by 8. So again, this is the number that's given to you. If you divide this by 8, it gets you the remainder of 1. So the closest number will be the one that's ending in 896. Now again, this is an easy question. You could have simply also calculated, you could have simply divided the last three digits by 8 and calculated it. But again, this is a much more straightforward method of solving the question. All right, so let's come to question number 4 now, and this is where things start to get a bit more interesting. Now, I know you guys will solve the next question utilizing a certain method. I'm just thinking, should I tell you how to solve the question right now? Okay, let's do this. You solve the question your way right now, and then I will give you some insights when we do the solution. So please click on still solving. Okay, here you go. All right, last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So I'm going to solve this question, and we are going to then we're going to go through the recommended method to solve this question. Okay, if a number n leaves a remainder 3 when divided by 2 or 4, what is the remainder when n is divided by 4? Okay, so what is our dividend equation? Dividend is equal to divisor times quotient plus remainder. Okay, now what is it that if we figure out what we have been asked, remainder when n is divided by 4, what we are doing over here is n is equal to 4p plus r. Everyone with me on this? N is equal to 4p plus r. Good. Now next, let's where r is less than 4. Very, very important. Something that I don't want any of you to miss. Very, very important. Okay. Now let's take a look at what's given to us. N leaves a remainder 3 when divided by 2 or 4. So n is equal to 2 or 4 q plus 3. Okay. Now what we need to figure out is what is this remainder r, right? Now if you just spend some time visualizing these two equations, this one and this one. What if this is given to you, right? And this is what you need to get at. You need to find out the value of r, right? Now, what if is it possible for you to express this term in the form of this term? Definitely, yes, it is possible. You can write T204Q in terms of 4p as 4 into 51q, where 51q becomes p. Okay, so in a sense, what I'm saying is this number 204q can be written as 4 times 51q. And now this equation is in the form of what it is that you needed. And now you can say that the remainder is 3. Does everyone understand what I've done over here? Okay, and this is important. I know that a number of you have solved the question. How many of you solved the question by simply calculating? Quite a few of you. Okay, so there were some people who used my approach, who used the approach that's on the slide. That's good, but there are quite a few of you who would have simply calculated. Right? Now, I don't want you to do that. Yes, you can solve the question by calculation or by plugging in some numbers, but doing that is not going to help you solve questions in which you cannot really do calculations. Okay, and I'll show that to you as we move along in this session. So I want you to understand, I want you to develop this process skill of visualization. That's a very, very critical skill that you need to build. Okay, and let me just, I'll spend a bit of more time, so I apologize to those of you who've already gotten it, because there are quite a few of you who haven't gotten it, so let me just spend a little bit more time on it. What you're doing is, so you have this equation over here, n is equal to 4p plus r. All of you got that, right? Now, in this equation, we need to find the value of r. Now, based on the information, you came up with this equation, n is equal to 204q plus 3, right? Now, what I'm telling you is that because you need the value of r, if you are able to express this term over here, 204q, in some manner such that this becomes a form of a multiple of 4, right? Then what you can say is that the remainder term will be the rest of the term that's remaining. Not necessarily 3. In this case, it ends up being 3. But essentially what you're doing is you're expressing 204q in terms of multiple of 4. Because after all, 4p is nothing but a multiple of 4. And that's what you're doing here. 204q is equal to 4 times 51q. So you're taking essentially, you're dividing 204q by 4, and what you're getting is 51q. Right, so you know that 204q is a direct multiple of 4, which means whatever is the remainder here, 3 is the remainder over here as well. Okay, that's what you're doing. So you are comparing two equations and you are seeing how you can get one equation in the form of the equation that you need so that you can figure out the unknown term. That's another description of what it is that we are doing. Okay, so the remainder is 3. Alright, so now what I want you to do is the next question that I gave you, I don't want you to plug in numbers, I don't want you to solve, I want you to approach in this manner because I want you guys to build this process skill of visualization. And it's very important to understand that the goal in this session is not to simply solve difficult questions. The goal in this session is for me to tell you where your conceptual information is lacking, where your process skills are lacking, and give you precise feedback as to what kind of process skills you need to work on. And we are building our way from easy questions to more medium level questions to more difficult questions. As I told you earlier, it's a progressively difficult, the difficulty level is going to increase in a progressive manner. Okay, so let's carry forward with this, and we will try to apply the process skill of visualization in the next question as well. And let me get the question. Go ahead, start solving. Here's the question. Last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. How many of you used the method that we discussed in the previous question? Good, very nice. Okay, so performance of this question is good, and I can tell the people who selected choice D, just the people who selected choice D. The remainder is 6 over here. What is the divisor? Just the people who selected choice D. What is the divisor here? In this question, 5. Now can the remainder be greater than divisor? So people who selected choice D, why did you select 6 as the answer? So again, very, very important. In the previous question, I told you it's very important to understand that R is less than the divisor, right? So again, very important to identify the constraints that you are working with, okay? These are constraints, okay? You need to apply constraints, and that's the next process skill, okay? Applying constraints. So people who selected choice D, about 26% of the class, you were not able to apply the constraint. And think about it. You knew the process, you knew the concept, you knew how to apply the concept, but you failed at a very, very important part of that concept, that remainder cannot be more than the divisor. Okay? So make a note of that. And it may seem very simple. I don't want you guys to, does anyone classify such a mistake as a silly mistake? When you're reviewing the solutions, how many of you would have classified this mistake as a silly mistake? Okay, this is not a silly mistake. Okay, Why am I saying it's not a silly mistake? Because it's a mistake that can be avoided if you focus on the process skill of applying constraints, of being cognizant of the constraints. So I don't want you to make a slide of this and just say, oh, that was a silly mistake. Because when we do that, whenever we call something as a silly mistake, we don't pay much attention to fixing those mistakes. Because we think, okay, that's a silly mistake. I'll make sure I don't do it again. But how are you going to make sure that you don't do it again? So you have to make sure that you calibrate your mistakes appropriately so that you can give them the right kind of focus so that you don't make those mistakes again. Okay? So again, the same thing, n is equal to 205 q plus 6. It's very clear that 205 is a multiple of 5 over here. So the remainder term will be 6 over here. But we know that the remainder cannot be more than the divisor. So we need to further divide 6 with 5 and we get the remainder as 1. So really two process skills in action. The first one is visualization skill. The other one is applying constraints. Okay. Now if you think about what you're doing in this visualization skill is that you're simply comparing the terms. You over here the term n in the required in the requirement is n is a term that is a multiple of 5 plus the remainder that's not a multiple of 5, and that's what you're trying to see. Can I express, I know this equation about n, can I express n such that one term is multiple of 5 and the other term is not a multiple of 5? And in this case the answer is yes, this term is already a multiple of 5, so the other term will be 6, and that's what your remainder is. Okay, all right, so let's summarize the entire warm-up section. You need to make sure that you have a 200% clarity in concepts. Okay, so whatever questions you have missed out on, I want you to make sure that you revise these concepts from the course. Okay, and again, GMAT questions require a much advanced application of these concepts. So that's the reason why it's very important for you to have that 200% clarity. Okay, so now we're going to move into 650 to 700 level problem solving questions. These are still not 700 level questions, but these are going to build upon the same concepts and process skills that we talked about in the warm-up section. So here comes your first question, and I believe these do contain 5 choices. So let's get the right poll. Go ahead, click on still solving. All right, here comes the first question. And don't solve by brute force. I don't want you to do m is equal to 8.2 times 30. I don't want you to calculate m. Do it in the manner that we have spoken about. Last 30 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So how many of you were able to solve this question using the method that we talked about? So how did you solve the question? I see about half of the class was, it's a 50-50 split. Less than half of the class was able to solve it. So how did you solve this question? By multiplying 8.2, okay, depends on whether my answer is correct or not. Okay, all right. By finding the m value, okay. So here is how you need to do it. Again, we are building on your visualization skills, and that's the reason why I didn't want you to simply calculate m. In this case, you can easily calculate and you can do the division as well because the numbers are not very complicated. But GMAT doesn't expect you to do such calculations. Okay, so. And plus, doing these calculations are not going to help you build your visualization skills, okay? So let's take a look at what it is that we need. M is equal to 15p plus r. You need the value of r. Now what you've been given is m divided by 30 is equal to 8.2. Now what I'm doing is I have this term over here and I need to bring this equation in the form of this equation. And what is the makeup of this equation? The makeup of this equation is that there is one term that is a multiple of 15 and the other term that is not a multiple of 15. Okay, that is what my goal is. So my goal over here is to bring this equation in the form such that one term is a multiple of 15 and the other term is not. So that's what I do. 30 times 8.2 is 30 times 8 plus 30 times 0.2, and what I'm able to do now is simply split this into I need a multiple of 15, right? So 15 times 2 into 8 plus 6. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. So I'm splitting this term 30 times 8, I'm splitting it into 15 times 2 times 8. 30 times 0.2, I'm simply doing the multiplication over here and I get 6 as the answer. Okay, so really the remainder over here is 6. Okay, does this method make sense? Is it difficult? I mean, comparing what it is that we need and how is it that we have to figure it out, is it complicated? No. Okay, so I'll give you another chance. The next question, I want you to make sure that you do it this way. Okay, so again, I'm going to repeat it one more time because I want you guys to build these process skills. Okay, what's happening over here is what you need is m is equal to 15p plus r. So what you need is m to be a multiple. One of the terms should be a multiple of 15. The other term should not be a multiple of 15. Okay, so that's what you're doing. You are splitting what you know is that m is product of 30 times 8.2. You're splitting 8 as 8 and 0.2 separate over here, and now you are simply figuring out that, okay, 30 times 8 is clearly a multiple of 15 as is over here. 30 times 0.2, you're doing the calculation and that's 6 and that's not a multiple of 15. So your remainder is 6 over here because this term corresponds to 15p over here. Okay, all right, so now let's do our next question, question number 2 in this section. And again, a similar question, but I want you to now apply this method. Go ahead, click on still solving. All right. Here Last 15 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Good. So almost everyone who attempted selected the correct answer. Now, were you able to apply the process that we talked about? Were you able to visualize? Good. All right, so let's go through it. N is equal to 30p plus r is less than 30. Very important. N is equal to 15 times 8.2. So let's split that up. Again, the goal is to get one term that is a multiple of 30 and the other term that is not multiple of 30. That's what the goal is. Okay. So what you are doing now is 15 times 8 plus 15 times 0.2. You then visualize it. M is equal to 15 times 2 times 4, which means that M is equal to 30 times 4 plus 3. So 3 becomes your remainder over here. Okay, so again, you're taking a look at what it is that you need and you're then mapping what you know to your needs. So that mapping is classified under this visualization bucket. Okay, all right. Let's now move on to the last question in this segment. Again, apply the same method. The next one will involve a little bit more processing, but just keep in mind what you need to map to, what do you have, and then just continue solving in that manner. Okay, so here is the question, and let me get the poll here. And click on still solving, please. Okay, let's go ahead. Here it is. All right, last 30 seconds, last 15 seconds rather. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So the correct answer here is choice E. So tell me, how was solving this question? This question did require a little bit more processing than the previous questions. Interesting, confusing. Okay, all right. So let's go through this. And again, it's a very important process skill. That's the reason why I want you all to master this. Okay. And again, it's not only applicable to number properties or to such kind of questions. It's also applicable to, questions in algebra. Okay. Or questions in word problems, because you do have to, I won't say manipulate, but you do need to visualize, and you need to, looking at things in this manner. Okay. So I appreciate that that a number of you are enjoying solving this method. So good, good. Solving such questions or utilizing this method. Good. So m is equal to 15 times 9.2. Let's split it up. 15 into 9 plus 15 into 0.2. Now we need it in the form such that you get a multiple of 30 and then another term that is not a multiple of 30. Okay. So you start to process it further. 15 times 8. Now, for 15 times 9, right? And you need it in terms of multiples of 30. So let's split that further. 8 is equal to 8. 9 is equal to 8 plus 1. Now, why am I doing 8 plus 1? Because I know 8 is an even number, and this term will definitely be a multiple of 30, right? So that's why I'm doing 15 into 8 plus 1 plus 3. So now 15 into 8, this now goes into a multiple of 30 side. 15 into 1 plus 3. So what I have is, this is the term that is multiple of 30. The other term is not a multiple of 30, so I get 18 as the answer. So as I said, this one required a bit of more processing, where it needed this processing over here because we needed to split the 9 into 8 plus 1. Okay? So again, that's what you're doing. You're looking at what is given, what it is that you need to get to, and then you are making that connection to say, okay, I can split 9 as 8 plus 1. Okay. All right, so correct answer here is choice E. So which quite a few of you got this question correct. About 64% of the students got this question correct. 64% of the class. So really what we did over here was progressively increasing degree of application. It's the same kind of question, but we saw that the manner in which we visualize, the manner in which we manipulate, that actually went from almost no manipulation to a little bit of manipulation to a lot of manipulation. Okay. All right. Let's now get into solving more difficult questions. Okay. Now, are you all feeling a little bit more confident with regards to this concept? I believe that you are. Okay. So what I'm going to now do is I am going to give you some more arsenal in your with you, so that you can solve these questions, such questions, a lot more effectively and efficiently. Okay. Let's say you've been given this question, what is the remainder when 31 plus 43 is divided by 7? Okay, so the answer is 4. What's the sequence of steps? You could either sum these two terms up, divide that by 7 and find the remainder, or you could divide each term by 7 and then add the remainders. Okay, is everyone with me on that? Yes or no? Good. Now, which of the two methods is more effective? Is it sequence 1 or sequence 2, or both, according to you? Okay, so it's a mixed bag responses. Frankly, either of the two methods is fine. Okay, you need to use your judgment to figure out which method is better to use. If numbers were bigger, then I would rather use sequence 2. If numbers were smaller, then I would rather use sequence 1. So it really depends, right? And it really depends how much do I want to divide by 7. So it really depends on you. But let's take a look at the product. Let's say it was 31 times 43 divided by 7. The answer is 3. But if you do it using sequence 1, then that involves a lot more calculations as compared to if you do it using sequence 2. So in this case, definitely sequence 2 is a lot more efficient. Okay. Now, is everyone clear as to why you can multiply the remainders? Is everyone clear about that? Multiply or add the remainders? Okay, there's some of you who have some doubts. And again, we can talk about that in this slide. And I won't go through it in complete detail, but I will share the PDF with you so you can go through it on your own at your own convenience after the session. But really what's happening is, if you take a look at sequence 2, 31 is 7 times 4 plus 3. 43 is 7 times 6 plus 1. So what am I doing? I'm applying this dividend equation, right? Divide or remainder equation, whatever you may want to call it. So if I add 31 plus 43, what I get is 7 times 4 plus 7 times 6 plus 3 plus 1, right? So I group similar terms together. What I get is 7 times 4 plus 6 plus 3 plus 1. So really the remainder when this term is divided by 7 is nothing but the sum of remainders. And the same thing applies when you multiply. Okay, so what I want all of you to do, and make a note of this as a homework, that I want you all to arrive at this conclusion on your own. Take up this sequence or take up these numbers or take up some other numbers, but I want you to go through step by step calculations so that you can get to this kind of manipulation on your own. Okay, so because I want you guys to prove it to yourself that yes, you can add and multiply remainders. All right. So now let's come to the next question. I want you to look at the question carefully and then solve the question. Let's click on still solving. All right. Last 10 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, so how many of you use the method that we showed you earlier, that we just discussed? Okay, how many of you actually calculated what is the remainder of 38 divided by 3? Okay. All right, so I'm going to show you something over here, and I want you guys to tell me how many of you were able to observe that. What is the remainder when 24 to the power 3 times 38 to the power 5 is divided by 3? If you notice here, 24 is a multiple of 3. It's completely divisible by 3, which means that the remainder when 24 is divided by 3 is 0, which means that this entire term is divisible by 3, so the remainder is 0. How many of you approach this problem in this manner? Good. Very nice. That is really good, because again, in this case, you didn't really have to apply anything. All you had to do was observe what's given to you and say, oh, 24 is completely divisible by 3. So I really don't have to do any manipulation. I don't have to do anything. The remainder of this entire term is 0 because this entire term is divisible by 3. Okay. Now, quite a few of you did not select choice A as the correct answer. Where did you falter? I mean, the accuracy for this question is less than 60%. Where did you falter? Wrong click. Okay, now that's what I call as a silly mistake. Cyclicity. Okay, treated it as plus. Oh, okay. Missed the multiplication sign, did not consider multiplication. Okay. Okay, so again, spend some more time looking at the question. There is a lot to gain from observing the question than from simply starting to solve it. Okay. First had 8, then thought about 38 times 3. And again, for those of you who consider 38, okay, again, that's why you have to observe and you have to understand. Just bring it down to basics. Okay, what you have to figure out is remainder when this entire term is divided by 3. Now there is a multiple of 3 already in that term, right? So the entire term is going to be divisible by 3. Okay, so again, very, very important to understand, to stick to your conceptual under basics. Okay, all right, the next one over here. Now this is where you absolutely need to apply the process here. Why? Because you don't have any term within here that is divisible by 3. So go ahead and start solving this question. All right, I'm going to end this poll now. Good. So I can see a number of you are able to solve this question correctly. So again, really good. The correct answer is choice C. For those of you who selected, okay, I think we're good here. So again, the expression can be considered as 25 times 38 times 3 times that, 3 times raised to the power 3. Now, again, the remainder of like terms will be the same. So you calculate the remainder of each of these small terms, and then you multiply, and then you raise them to the power 3. So again, what you get is 8. Now, the answer is 8, but the remainder cannot be 8 because their divisor is 3. So you again split 8 into, you write the divisibility equation here, and you get the remainder as 2. So yes, absolutely, the power definitely matters here. You are considering the power over here. You are considering the power of 3, and you are raising the remainder to the power 3. Okay. All right. Let's now move on to our next section here. So again, what we did over here was we are simply saying that calculations can be simplified extensively, right? If you have multiplication or if you have addition and you have to find out the remainders, it's a lot more easy and efficient if we take the individual terms and then we multiply or we add the remainders. Okay, so again, this is the process skill of simplification. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to discuss is something that's very specific to divisibility and remainders. Okay, I would say this is the only thing that's just specific to the remainders concept here. And what we call it as is negative remainders. And again, the goal over here is to simplify calculations. Now, in the context of GMAT, remainders are always positive and remainders are always less than the divisor. Okay, but at some point you can actually express a term. For example, 5 divided by 2, you can write as 2 times 2 plus 1, in which the remainder is plus 1. But you can also write this as 5 is equal to 2 times 3 minus 1, right? So you can write it as 6 minus 1, which is 2 times 3 minus 1. Now here the remainder becomes a negative remainder, minus 1, right? Likewise, 8, instead of expressing it in this term as 3 times 2 plus 2, right, what you can do is you can express it as 3 times 3 minus 1. Okay, so in this case, your positive remainder 2 has changed into your negative remainder 1. Everyone with me on this? All I'm doing is I'm just using this divisibility equation and I'm just changing the form of it. Instead of using the divisor as 2 in the case of, instead of using quotient as 2, I'm using a quotient as 3, and when I do that, I get a negative remainder of 1. Likewise over here, instead of using the quotient as 2, I'm using the quotient as 3, and what I'm getting is a negative remainder, negative 1 remainder. My goal is to get a smaller negative, smaller a number that's whose magnitude is smaller than the positive remainder. That's what I'm doing over here. Okay. Now, again, you cannot say that the remainder is -1. Okay. Why? Because in the context of GMAT, remainders are never negative. So you need to go back before you mark your answer for the remainder. You need to convert your negative remainder back to your positive remainder. Okay. And for that, you go through this manipulation. And I want you all to spend some time on the slide when I share the PDF with you to do this manipulation on your own. But right now, so that you are able to apply this manipulation, what I'm telling you is that what you need to do is to convert your negative remainder back to your positive remainder. You need to add the divisor to your negative remainder. Okay. So as a homework, please make a note of this. I want you to go through this slide and do this manipulation on your own so that you can arrive at this conclusion over here. Okay. So positive remainder, for now, to apply it, just keep in mind positive remainder is equal to negative remainder plus divisor. Okay, just simply add back the divisor. So now let's solve question number 6, in which you will see why negative remainders are significant. How can they simplify your calculations? Okay, so in this case, again, observe what is given, figure out your remainder equation properly, okay, and then you do the processing. So go ahead and solve this question. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. All right. So almost everyone got this question correct. So tell me, were you able to apply the negative remainders concept? Not that many people were able to. How did you solve this question then? Didn't see why it's needed. All right. Patterns, okay. All right. Well, let me show you why it's needed, and then you can tell me whether your method is was comfortable or not. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this. What we have is that this term gives us the value 0 for the remainder. So we really need to deal with just this term 17 to the power 7. Now, if we write it in terms of your typical positive remainders, you get the value 2, remainder 2, which means that you need a 2 raised to the power 7 and then do the processing, right? So what we need to do over here is 17, you can write 17 is equal to 3 times 6 minus 1. So now all you have to do is minus 1 raised to the power 7, which is minus 1. Now that's a negative remainder. You simply add back 3, that's your divisor, and you get the value as 2. So the remainder is 2. Now why this term has no remainder? Because 24 is divisible by 3. That's the reason why this thing is here. So now tell me, instead of doing 2 to the power 7, isn't it better to do it this way? Yes or no? Again, it's all about making your processing more efficient. Okay? All right. So now let's take a look at this next question, which is another application of negative remainders. So let's bring this back. All right, last 10 seconds. I'm going to end the poll now. So yes, everyone is converging to choice E. That is the right answer. How many of you applied the negative remainder concept here? Good. So let's go through this. So 17 raised to the power 7, remainder 6. So again, 17 is equal to 6 times 3 minus 1. Here, if you use positive remainder, that's a pretty large number. Raising that to the power 7 will be a very onerous task. So it's a lot better to use negative remainder, negative 1. And again, negative remainders you use when you know that you can, it's preferable to use it when you know that you can express it as a minus 1 remainder. Okay. So again, minus 1 to the power 7, you get minus 1. So converting that to positive remainder, you get the answer as 5. Okay. So that's the correct answer. So really, it's okay to process negative remainders, and it's very important to convert negative remainders to positive remainders. Okay. All right. So now let's come back to the questions that I gave you right up front in the session. I'm going to give you another chance to solve each of those questions, but you solve one question and then we'll discuss the answer to that question. Okay, so let's do that over here. But let me just get this from you. How's your comfort level now? as compared to when you started off this session? Higher, much better? Good. Very nice. That is nice. Now, no comparison. That's good. Tremendous. Very nice. And that was the goal, And again, what I want you to take away from this is not just in the context of divisibility and remainders, but also in the context of every new thing that you are learning in the course. Give yourself time. Make sure that you take it slowly. Make sure that you absorb the easier application, and you focus on the right thing. The goal is not just to answer questions correctly or answer questions by hook or by crook. The goal is to learn the right kind of process skills. Okay, for example, the earlier questions that we were solving, you could have simply calculated the value of m and then divided that by 6 and then find the answer. But remember, GMAT is not here to figure out how well you can calculate, right? We don't even need to do calculations as much given the day and age of computers today, right? But what GMAT wants to test you on is that how logical is your thought process? Can you solve problems? Okay, given a problem, do you understand what it is? Can you chart out the path from the given information to the final information that's needed? And that's what each of these questions is designed to figure out. Okay? Good. I'm really happy to see. I mean, you guys made my day by telling me this, that you have improved already. Okay, so now let's come back to question number 8. And again, remember, I really don't care whether you get this question correct or not. That's not the metric that I'm tracking. But I want to see whether you are more confident about your approach to this question. You still may falter, and that's okay. All right. Okay, let's get everyone to click on still solving. Okay, so my recommendation to you is when you are looking at statement 1, I want you to apply the stuff that we have learned in this session. Okay, so definitely apply that and then see if your answer changes. All right, last 15 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay. So let me tell you the correct answer here, and I'll also share the results over here from the previous attempt. So the correct answer here is choice A, which about 51% of the class has been able to mark. Earlier, more people had selected choice C than choice A. So clearly, there are some people who are now able to solve this question correctly, and we'll go through the solution. And I would then want you all to tell me whether you solved the question in the manner that I solved. Okay. So what is the remainder when a positive integer p is divided by a positive integer m, where m is greater than 1? So really all we have to figure out is p remainder m, and m is greater than 1. Now what is the first statement? The first statement tells us p is equal to m plus 1 raised to the power 8, right? So what we have to figure out is p remainder m, right? So that's what we do. We figure out, okay, m plus 1 raised to the power 8 divided by m. We have to find the remainder of that. Now we know how to simplify these calculations. We know that if we simply find the remainder of m plus 1 divided by m and raise that to the power 8, we should be able to find the remainder, right? So what we get is 1 to the power 8. We get 1 as the answer. Okay, so all we are doing is looking at what is given to us, figuring out what it is that we need to find out, and we are slowly simplifying that. Okay, so the correct answer here, so choice statement 1 is able to tell that to us, right? Now let's take a look at statement 2. Okay, statement 2 simply tells us m is equal to 8. So it does not give us any information about the value p, so which means that we really can't find anything about this we can't really find the remainder. Okay, so the correct answer here is choice A. Now, if you remember, as I said earlier, more people selected choice C as the correct answer, and the reason for that was that you probably thought that the first equation is giving you the value of the relationship between P and M. The second statement gives you the value of M. So you can simply use both the pieces of information and you can find the answer. How many of you went through that thought process the first time when you solved this question? And again, this is a very, very popular trap that GMAT uses to create such questions, and we call that as a C trap. By that, what we mean is that if you don't do a deep dive analysis, on the surface, it would seem as if both the statements are giving you enough information to be utilized together to solve the question. Okay, but that happens only if you don't do a deep dive analysis of the information that's given to you. Now, there are some of you who are asking me, why does the power 8 go out? Again, my recommendation to you would be to go through what we have discussed in this session earlier, where we talk about that you can, if you multiply, so the remainder of terms that are multiplied can be figured out by simply finding the remainder of individual terms and then multiplying those remainders individually, right? Whereas over here, that's exactly what you're doing over here. Okay. All right. So again, that's where the learnings that you have from your smaller questions, easier questions, those are the learnings that you're applying over here. Okay. All right. Let's now move on to our 9th question, and I'm going to share the results with, I'm going to open up the poll. Can you all please click on still solving? Now this is a slightly more involved question, and I'm going to give you a hint here. Spend more time evaluating the question statement. Okay, if you evaluate the question statement and if you understand what the question statement is asking you to find out, you will be able to solve this question rather easily. All right, last 10 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll. And I apologize, I had the broadcast results on, so thank you for pointing that out. So the correct answer here is choice A. Now, before I go into the solution of this question, let me understand what is it that we need to find the answer to? How did you simplify the question statement? Okay. How many of you were able to figure out that all we need to figure out is whether n is odd or even? How many of you were able to do that? Because that's the crux of this question. Good, good. And were you able to appreciate the application of negative remainders in this case? Okay, good, good. All right. So now let's go through this. As I said, the most important thing here is to do the analysis of the question statement. We need to find out the remainder when 38 raised to the power n square is divided by 13. Now again, it's the power, so we can take that outside because we can simply find the remainder of 38 by 13 and then raise that to the power n square to find out the total remainder. Right. So again, if we process it using our negative remainders, that's going to be a lot easier. So we basically do that, minus 1 raised to the power n square. Now, if n is even, then there are two cases, n is even or n is odd. If n is even, then the remainder is 1. If n is odd, then the remainder will be minus 1, which means that you have to convert it into a positive remainder. You do that by adding the divisor. So really the remainder is 12 or 1, depending upon whether n is odd or even. Okay, so you need to find out whether n is odd or even. Okay, now what you do is you look at statement 1. Statement 1 tells you that n is equal, so n leaves no remainder when divided by 4, which means that n is an even number, which means that you've been able to find your answer. So choice A, statement 1 is sufficient, which means that your possible answer choices are A or D. Let's take a look at statement 2. Statement 2 tells us that square root of n is only divisible by 1 and itself, which means that square root of n is a prime number, right? Now, if square root of n is a prime number, then n is square of prime number, which means that it can be even or odd, which means that we really can't find the answer to this question. Okay, so why is it that less than half of the class was able to select choice A as the correct answer? Why is that? If you were able to figure out what it is that you need to find out, then processing of the statements was relatively straightforward. So where is it that you faltered? So I want everyone who did not select choice A to tell me where is it that you faltered? Miss the even odd part. Okay, so that means you weren't able to analyze the statement, the question statement, got confused with statement 2. Why? Why did you consider only 2 in statement 2? Okay. So again, I see a number of issues here. The first one is that you had a conceptual issue wherein you didn't consider 2 to be a prime number. Okay, and that's a very basic mistake. So again, don't do that mistake. A number of data sufficiency questions test you on these concepts, right? And these are very basic concepts. Okay, then there are some of you who missed out on who actually considered statement 1 while considering statement 2, and that's a very classic mistake that students do while solving data sufficiency questions. You have to keep the two separate. Okay, you cannot utilize information from statement 1 while you're analyzing just the statement 2. Okay, so again you can see that even though you know the concepts, you can falter because you are not paying that much you're not following the process the right way. You're not making sure that you're understanding the information that's given to you. Okay? But as such, if you think about it, was this question difficult? I mean, when you see the solution, is there anything complicated in this question? You know everything, right? We've been building up to solving such questions. Alright, so let's take a look at the last question now, question number 10. And that will be it for this session. So alright, last few seconds. Alright, I'm going to end the poll now. Alright, so the correct answer here is choice D, and let's solve the question. So we really need to find the remainder of when 4m is divided by 16, and so there isn't much to do over here. Let's now, so what you get is 4m is equal to 16q plus r, right? That's how you're expressing the information given. Now statement 1, what does statement 1 say? Statement 1 says m is equal to 32 raised to the power 32k plus 4. Now if you think about it, this is what we've been working towards. What you have is an equation that's given to you, and this is what you need to bring. You need to bring this equation in the form of this equation such that one term is a multiple of 16 and the other term is not a multiple of 16. So all the work that we were doing on easy questions were building up for you to be able to solve such a question in DS wherein all you have are variables. Okay, and that's the reason why I wanted you all to build upon your process, your visualization process skill. Okay, so what we are doing now is you're multiplying 4 by 4 to bring it into the form needed. You have 4m here, so let's multiply both sides of this equation by 4 so that you have one term as 4m, so that yeah. And then you start to simplify this further. Your goal is to get one term that is a multiple of 16 and the other term that is not a multiple of 16. But what you end up getting over here is that there is no term that is not a multiple of 16, which means that the remainder is 0. So the possible answer choices are A and D. Okay. How many of you were able to process it in this manner? Now do you see how what we were doing earlier was building up to such a processing? Do you see how the process skills of visualization are so very important? Good. Now let's take a look at second statement. Now second statement is a bit more involved. Okay. Let's look at that. Statement 2 says that m cube is divisible by 16. That's what it's saying. Which means that if we express it in terms of your prime factors, what you get is m is equal to 2 to the power a. It's divisible by 16, which means definitely it should have 2 as a prime number. Okay. Times p1 to the power b times p2 to the power c. Okay. Now m cube, so again m cube is divisible by 16, which means m is an even number, right? That's why 2 is a prime factor of m. Now what you're given is, let's cube both sides, and what you get is that m cube is equal to 2 to the power 3a, right? And so on, so forth. Now it's divisible by 60. M cube is divisible by 16. What is 16? 16 is nothing but 2 to the power 4, which means that the power 3a should be at least 4, right? Which means that a should be at least 4 divided by 3. Now a is an integer, which means that the minimum value of a is 2, which means that m is equal to 2 to the power 2, and so on and so forth, the other prime factors. At least that, right? Which means that 4m is equal to 4 into 2 to the power 2. Okay? Which means that, again, this information also tells you that r is 0. Okay, so that means statement 2 is sufficient. So again, as I said, this one required a bit more processing. But again, if you go with m cube is divisible by 16, all we are doing is we are expressing m in terms of its prime factors, and we are really concerned about the factor 2 over here, right? Because we know that m is an even number, and then we are just taking information from, if m cube is divisible by 16, what can you tell about the power of 2? Okay, because that's all we care about. Why? Because what we need to find out is, what is the remainder when 4m is divided by 16? So we are really just concerned about the powers of 2. Okay, and that's what you are able to arrive at, that this information tells you that this number is completely divisible by 16. Okay. All right. So really speaking, if you think about it, if you prepare for the test properly, there is no reason why you cannot master GMAT quant. Okay, you can improve from a low quant score, you can improve from a moderate quant score, you can improve even if you are at a Q48. If you follow the step-by-step process, you can improve to a Q50. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to share certain stories with you of people with different starting scores, so that you understand that people, if they prepare in the right manner, they can get to their target score. The first success story is for people who think that they are good in GMAT quant, and I want you all to go through his verified review. Krish had always done well in quant, but he was stumped by the GMAT. He constantly faltered while answering GMAT questions, and he fell in familiar traps. Frustrated with his lack of progress, he decided to change his approach. And he started following a methodical approach, and he even changed his approach completely for data sufficiency questions. After making these changes, he was able to improve his quant score to a Q51, the highest possible, and he ended up scoring a 740. Okay, so really you have to start organizing information better from the question. You need to start simplifying and you need to apply the logic. Those are the things that Krish had learned during his GMAT prep. Okay. Now the next story is of a South American person. His name is Leonardo. He's someone who had not been very excellent in GMAT Quant and was stuck at Q45 despite trying really hard. He needed a high quant score because he wanted to apply to finance-focused schools such as NYU Wharton, as well as schools such as Stepper. Now, to improve beyond Q45, Leo adopted a methodical approach. He started consciously focusing on constraints, showing his work on paper. Once he had this approach right, he made extensive use of analytics using Quant's Coloranium to isolate the areas that he needed to improve upon. And then he used the custom quizzing feature to ensure that he had actually improved. And because of his good quant score, he was an excellent verbal score. He was admitted to Wharton, Stern, and Tepper. Now, this third success story is of an individual who was extremely weak in quant. His starting score was Q30, a mere 20 percentile. Mazibar, which is his PTG forum name, spent a ton of time reading quant books but was not able to improve. He benefited from the progressive learning architecture at e-GMAT, in which he was able to cement his basics before taking on difficult questions. And in case his basics were not strong enough, he was given appropriate feedback by the system. Because of quizzes that are built into each file, he was able to leverage data to help him. Mazibar was able to improve to Q45, that is 59 percentile in quant. This was a huge improvement over his starting score. Now, this next success story is an amazing story of an individual who had an extremely strong determination to study at top B schools. He started at Q38, which coincidentally is 38 percentile on GMAT Quant. He realized that he needed a stellar quant score to get an admit from Wharton and GSB Chicago, and the only way to improve from such a low score was to truly focus on learning, which he did using the video lessons. He was short on time, so he used analytics in Quant's Coloranium to isolate the areas where he needed most help. Like Leonardo, he used custom quiz feature to ensure that he did indeed improve upon these topics. So really, to ace GMAT Quant, focus on learning and adopting good habits. Don't go for shortcuts. Focus on real conceptual learning and application. Alright. Now, one thing that I do want to tell is, I want you all to trust the test maker. Okay. He'll not throw anything at you that you cannot solve. Okay. At times, when I was looking at the questions that some students were posting in the Q&A pod, you were asking things such as, okay, what if the power is 25 instead of 7, or what if the number is 253 instead of 25, or things like that, right? Yes, you can talk about all these what ifs, but frankly, as I said, when the test maker creates questions, there is a certain thing that he or she is looking to see in the solution, in the manner in which you solve the questions, right? And those things may not be possible by simply putting in any number in that question. Those numbers are chosen with a particular intent, right? So whenever you're solving questions, I don't want you to be questioning the method that is there by saying, okay, yes, this method works on this set of numbers, but what if you have such a different number, right? I mean, that's not a very productive way of preparing. Okay, now you can pose those questions when it gets to utilizing tricks, right? Because tricks work on very limited set of questions. But again, as long as the solution that's given to you is built on sound fundamentals, don't question that solution. Okay, and don't think, oh my God, yes, it's working over here, but what if the number is something different, right? So again, trust the test maker. He's not going to put anything on you that you cannot solve. For example, in a negative remainder type problem, the numbers will be such that you would be able to simplify it to get to -1 remainder. Okay, the numbers, because then there is no point. I mean, if you use different kinds of numbers, then again, you're not really checking whether you can get to the right kind of solution using a step-by-step method. Okay, so trust the test maker. Okay, trust yourself. That's also something which is very important. You have, if you prepare in the right manner, you have everything in your arsenal to solve such questions. So trust the test maker and trust yourself. Okay. So as next steps, what I would recommend all of you to do is go through the number properties, the concepts that are there in the free trial, solve the practice questions that I'll share with you in the PDF, and go through the slides that I talked about during the session. Okay, definitely go through them. If you had certain doubts about any of the questions that we discussed here, go through those questions yourself again. The PDF contains detailed solutions. Okay, you will be able to answer those again. To give yourself proper time to absorb those concepts. Okay, and again, solve questions in Scholarium. There are quite a few questions available for you. Okay, so and these are the questions for your practice, which are included in the PDF packet that I share with you. Okay. All right. So that being said, we are now at the in the last phase of this session. So if you have any questions, please post them over here. And in the meanwhile, let me get some feedback from you as to what you learned from the session. What did you like in the session? Again, we conduct these sessions periodically, so I would want to get feedback from you so that we can incorporate the feedback. We know what we are doing, whether that's working for you or not. That's really very important for us. Okay, the PDF is right here. Good. I'm really glad to see the feedback that you're putting in. Where to access the PDF? It's already shared. Did not get question 9 on why or how the question was to determine. Again, I would want you to go through the solution on your own and you should be able to get it. Okay. Can I break my GMAT journey from 500 to 600 and 600 to 700? Okay. Once I achieve it. Oh, okay. So the question is, I want to ask you, can I break my GMAT journey from 500 to 600 and from 600 to 700 plus? This implies I will be giving one actual GMAT test in advance targeting a 600 score. Once I achieve it, then in second attempt, I will target 700 just to build confidence. Or should I target 700 only and try to crack the GMAT in my first attempt? It's a very interesting question. I have never had somebody come and ask me this question, and again, people do end up doing this because they don't prepare the right way. But frankly, I wouldn't want you to waste your $280 or $250 plus $30 for the ESR on your GMAT test attempt. Okay, when you have all the tools to make sure that you can get to 700 right in your first attempt. Okay, so definitely target 500. Target a 700 plus score and utilize Sigma X mocks to make sure that you are improving the right way. The kind of score prediction that you get from Sigma X mock, it's very, very close to what you get in the actual GMAT test. Okay, so I don't want, and unless you have a lot of free money on your hand, I wouldn't want you to waste that money. Okay, so again, target 700 plus, utilize personalized study plan, and then basically get there. Okay, so I hope that was able to, you can do, okay, it's fine, you can do it, but then why do you want to do it is the question. Okay. Do I need to buy the ESR before? And the other thing is, if you're scoring, if you can get to your target score in the same, in your first attempt, you're saving so much of time. I mean, you might as well utilize that extra time in your application, which is the definite next step. Okay. Do I need to buy the ESR beforehand, or can I wait and see if I need the breakdown and buy the ESR later? I would say buy the ESR right away. Why? Because it basically helps you to understand what your subsectional scores are, right? So definitely buy it. Okay, so I have the continuing question that to build confidence. Again, Ishan, you can build confidence by taking Sigma X mocks. You have 5 mocks in the course, which you get if you buy GMAT online course. So again, I don't really see the reason for you to spend those $250 to simply to build confidence when you have the mock test at your disposal. Okay, so I had bought the e-GMAT course before Sigma X mocks were introduced. Where can I buy these mocks? You can still buy them, but again, if you have already utilized a lot of Scholaranium questions, then that may be a problem, because then those questions will be familiar to you. But again, write to us. So write to me at payal@e-gmat.com, and we'll be able to take a look at your account and see whether you're still eligible to purchase Sigma X mocks. Okay. Does it matter if you're taking GMAT more than 2 times, as I've already taken it 2 times? Again, Ayushi, if you've taken it 2 times, I would say third time, make sure that you get to your target score. So prepare in the right manner. I mean, I can't tell you how many times it already. I feel so bad that people have all the tools with them, but still, because they don't prepare the right way, they end up wasting so much of time and money. Okay, so again, make sure that you're preparing the right way, make sure that you're planning right. So your goal is to get to your target GMAT score. Now, whether it takes you 2 attempts, whether it takes you 3 attempts, it's okay. As long as you are able to show progressive improvement, it should be okay. But I would say let this 3rd time be the last time that you take the test, to make sure that you get to your target GMAT score. I have taken my GMAT earlier but cancelled my score. Does it show up when I apply to colleges? No, it should not. If you cancelled your scores, that should not. Does it take more time if I break my GMAT journey into 2 phases? Absolutely, yes, Ishan, it does. Why? Because if you're scoring a 600, and I want you to spend some time with the GMAT Planner tool that we have, gmatplanner.com, go look into that and figure out, and you'll be able to see if you are targeting a 600, you don't really need those high percentiles in any of the subsections, versus if you're targeting a 700 plus, then you definitely need higher percentiles. And as we tell all our students, for you, if you, let's say you are at a 39 percentile starting percentile in SC, and your target is to get to 85 percentile in SC, then it makes perfect sense for you to get from that 39 percentile to that 85 percentile all in one go. Right? So, which means that you go through the course, you get to, let's say, 65, 70 percentile after going through the course, and then you utilize Scholaranium to fine-tune your preparation to understand, okay, where is it that you need to focus your energy on. So once you have that momentum in SC, that momentum will actually get you to your target score a lot quicker than that stop and go type of a thing. Okay? If I accept my score and rewrite, will the schools have access to my scores? Yes. When you accept the scores, the schools do get access to those scores. With just 3 weeks to go, any suggestions? Prashant, again, make sure that you have those milestones defined for you. So take a look at those milestones and see if you are, see how well you are tracking by those. Okay. Take mock test towards the end. Again, I have no idea about where you are at right now in your prep, so my recommendations are going to be very generic. So I would say, so again, Prashant, write to me at payal@e-gmat.com. Are you a current student? Because if you are a current student, I would be able to take a look at your data. Okay, you're not. So I would say write to us. If you have your ESR, please share your ESR with us, and then we'll be able to give you a recommendation as to where you're at. Okay. But as such, if you have your ESR with you, create your personalized study plan, and figure out where you need help. Okay. I'm at Q43. Will a month be enough to get to Q48? Absolutely, it will be. Once we go through e-GMAT material on verbal and quant, do you see a value add to go through OG material? Yes, OG material, again, it helps you to get that confidence that utilizing my conceptual and process knowledge, I can solve official questions. Okay, and that's the reason why we have included OG quizzes in our courses, so that you get the right kind of practice at the right kind of time. Okay, so definitely we do recommend solving official questions, and it's really just to get that level of confidence that you can solve official questions. Okay, I'm stuck at Q32. How to improve from here? Analysis and application is my issue. Does solving more problems help me? Again, you can solve more problems, but you need to know where is it that you are having issues. Okay, so if you're stuck at Q32, again, Swaroop, are you an e-GMAT student? So if you are stuck at Q32, what you need to do is you need to figure out where you definitely have conceptual gaps, because Q32 is a low percentile. So you need to bridge those conceptual gaps. You need to go through the concept files. You need to learn the application. So the whole 9 yards that I spoke about in the beginning of the session. Okay. Prior to how many days before the test should we start giving mocks? Again, you should start taking mocks when you are, let's say a week before, week and a half before the test, you should take mocks. Again, it all depends upon where you, when are you ready to take the mocks. Okay, if you are scoring above, let's say 70, 75 percentile, if you're within, let's say 10 to 50, I would say within 5 percentile points of your target percentile level through the ability quizzes that you see in Scholaranium, then you should start taking mock tests. But don't take mock tests just because your test date is approaching. Take mock tests when you feel you're ready. And that's the beauty of utilizing a system such as e-GMAT system, because you learn the stuff in the course, then you go into Scholaranium and you assess your skill level in Scholaranium, and you take appropriate actions right there and then. You don't really need to take a mock test to figure out how much you've improved in SC or how much you've improved in algebra. Okay, you have these ability quizzes that you utilize. You get to those 5 milestones utilizing Scholaranium, and then once you do hit those milestones, that's when you start taking mocks. Okay, so make sure that you have the right, you understand the right intent behind taking these mocks. But as such, if you are doing the course in the right manner, then we do recommend that in the last 1 week you do take mocks, and because that really builds up the stamina. And again, if you think about it, when you're taking individual ability quizzes utilizing Scholaranium, those quizzes are also helping you build your stamina. Okay, all right. All right, so I think that's about it. For any of you who have any questions with regards to how is it that you should be improving, or how is it that you should plan your prep, please send me an email at payal@e-gmat.com, and we will be able to help you in creating your personalized study plan. Okay. So I have another question. While using official GMAT prep, I had Q40 and then Q42. I hope to get to Q50. Again, if you took the official GMAT, or you took the official GMAT prep, so you may not have the percentiles with you. So I would say take a quant ability quiz, and you should be able to get percentiles, and then you basically get an idea of where you're at, and then you create your personalized study plan. But if you are having problems, send me an email, and we'll be able to help you out there. Okay. All right, then with this we've come to the end of this session. I'm going to be so you already have the PDF here, so definitely download that PDF, and yeah, thank you very much. I really enjoyed conducting this session, and you were all very
pleasant audience, and thank you so much for the wonderful feedback that you've given. All the very best, and let us know how we can help you.